Great evening, and great evening. How are you this beautiful evening? Just doing a quick check in. Be right with everyone. Okay, move over a little bit. All right. So, thank you so much for waiting. Little technicalities, but we got this. So I want to say welcome once again to episode number 242, and it is being brought to you by Always Destined for Greatness, Be Lips and Drip City Customs, LLC. If value is being received tonight, or an aha, or even a breakthrough moment, please indicate that in the chat because it is so important for me to know that. Also, please state the geographical area in which you are tuning in from tonight so that we can welcome you appropriately. So with that being said, welcome to the SONYA DUNGEE podcast, where conversation is always the essence of the soul. I am your host, SONYA DUNGEE, and yes, of course, we're still bringing the heat to the IG, the Facebook, the YouTube, and now the TikTok streets. And with that being said, also, I'm going to be jumping back and forth just to make sure that we are live everywhere. We are. All right. So tonight's conversation is going to be centered around parental loss and how it exactly changes your family situation. All right. Parental loss changes more than just your family structure. It changes your identity. This episode is for the woman who has been surviving on autopilot, if you will, showing up for everybody else while quietly wondering, who am I? Because you see, grief does not make you mourn the parent you lost, not only, but sometimes it makes you mourn the version of yourself you lost along the way. And so there are women that are listening tonight who, quite frankly, are emotionally exhausted, not because they're weak, but because they've been carrying that invisible pain for far too long. So tonight, I want to tell you some things. And I want you to be able to hear me clearly. The pain that nobody sees, the pain that nobody checks on, the pain that's hidden behind responsibilities, smiles, work, schedules, motherhood, and survival. And somewhere between losing your parent and trying to continue life, you lost pieces of yourself too. Your confidence changed, your emotions changed, your routines changed, even your laughter changed. You learned how to survive the loss. But nobody taught you how to find yourself again afterward. So tonight we're going to be talking through 5 steps to move forward after parental loss without abandoning yourself in the process. But before we do, for those of you joining for the first time or watching the replay later, and I want to thank you, Washington, D.C., for joining. And I apologize, but the other social media platforms I just can't see at the moment, but I will acknowledge you in the process afterwards. So again, my name is SONYA DUNGEE, and I have a story to tell. And my story is how I became a parental grief life coach. You see, my journey, it began in the midst of the pandemic on one of the most frigid days in January 23rd of 2021 to be exact, at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Northport, New York. You see, less than 48 hours before, I was taken to the most smallest room I've ever seen in my entire life, along with my dad. And we were bluntly told by a medical professional that I've never seen before that my dad had 6 months to live. And when I mean tell you left field, that came out of left field. I never saw it coming. Never saw it coming. My dad had a blood disorder where it gave the impression that he was bleeding outright, but he was not. It just was that his red cells weren't matriculating through his body. And what that means is, right, going from preschool to 12th grade, you know, in progression, a child goes from the early stages until they graduate high school. Well, it's the same thing with the cells. The cells started out small and underdeveloped, and they progressed through, and then after that they passed through. It didn't happen with my dad. So every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes maybe 1 week, he would just go for a blood transfusion. And I don't mean to make it sound like it wasn't a big deal, but in the grand scheme of things, his doctor, who was the head of oncology and hematology, explained it as, when you have an old car with an old engine, you don't go and buy a new engine for an old car. If it's leaking oil, that would be, the red blood cells, you just put more oil in. So that was the means of the transfusions. So with that being said, it was something that wasn't the best, but it was something that was livable, because other than that, my dad was in excellent health. So lo and behold, after being told 6 months to live, in my head, I immediately knew what I was going to do. I was going to make my dad's 6 months the best he could be in. And in that, I was making preparations to bring my dad back to my home and make him comfortable. And here I am now, not even 48 hours later, sitting at my dad's bedside, holding his hand in a place where I didn't want to go, because I knew what the end result was going to be. And I knew subconsciously, if I'm not there, and if I'm not looking at my dad, if I'm not sitting at his bedside, if I'm not holding his hands, then it can't happen, because I'm not there. Well, that's not how things work. So there I was, holding his hand, sitting at his bedside, looking into his face. And it was in that moment I noticed that a tear came rolling down his cheek. And it was then he took his last breath here on this earth, knowing that that was his first breath in heaven. Well, it was at that point that my life changed forever. I spiraled out of control. I became isolated. I lost my identity. I was in survival mode. And there I remained for 342 days until enough became enough. And I decided that there was more life ahead of me than there was behind me. And that wasn't what my dad expected of me. And that God left me here for a purpose. And I wanted to find my God-given purpose. So I invested in myself. That meant getting a coach, mentor. With that came a community of like-minded, supportive community of people that were there to support me even when they didn't know it. And in that investment, I took those classes, and I was intentional, and I was focused. I did the work. And here I am now as a result, 5.5 years plus later, after going through that in that dark place and losing a lot of weight rapidly and not spending time with friends and family and all of that, to now being here on podcast number 242. And I am a parental grief life coach. And I help women in their early 30s to mid 50s navigating paternal grief go from surviving to rediscovering their identity, reclaiming emotional safety, and rebuilding in confidence so they can step fully into their God-given purpose and be able to be destined for their greatness. So I want to thank you for allowing me to share that. And we're going to go ahead and move forward. And in that, we're going to talk about accepting the grief that changed you. And it's a hard pill to swallow. It was very hard for me to accept that. And you see, one of the most hardest truths about parental loss is realizing you are not the same person anymore. And that realization can be terrifying. Many women keep trying to go back to who they were before the loss, not realizing grief changed their emotional DNA. So the first step of 5 that I am going to give you tonight, along with asking you some thought-provoking questions along the way, is ask yourself, who am I becoming through this? Healing begins when you stop fighting the fact that grief changed you. Are you grieving only your parents? Or are you also grieving the version of yourself that existed before the loss? You see, women are applauded for being strong while silently falling apart. Just as I was. I thought I was Atlas. I thought I was the one that could carry everything on my shoulders. I could be the glue to just glue everything together. I didn't tell my family how I was really feeling. I didn't even know that they knew, because I didn't want to feel selfish in me adding my weight of grief to theirs that they were already carrying. But women also answer texts while hurting, go to work while hurting, take care of everybody else while hurting. And eventually, survival becomes performance. So here is your step number 2. Give yourself permission to tell the truth emotionally. Not to everybody, but to yourself. Because healing cannot happen where pretend lives. How much of your exhaustion comes from acting okay when you're not? I did a lot of acting. I wonder why I don't have an Academy Award behind me. Somebody asked me, was I okay? I'm okay. And as I stated so many times in the past, when somebody tells you they're okay, that is a red flag. They're not okay. And then we have to release the guilt of living again. Many grieving daughters feel guilty when life starts moving again. Guilty for laughing, guilty for smiling, guilty for healing. As if joy somehow dishonors the parent they lost. And that was difficult for me too. If I would think of my dad or my mama and something funny would come across, I would catch myself really quick and look around. Oh my gosh, oh my goodness. I hope nobody heard me. I hope nobody saw me. I'm not supposed to be laughing. How dare me? I'm being disrespectful. I'm being disloyal because I'm laughing when I should be grieving. But again, your joy, your healing is not a betrayal. Step 3. Stop punishing yourself for surviving. Your parents' love was never meant to become a prison sentence. You are allowed to laugh again. You are allowed to dream again. You are allowed to travel again. You are allowed to live again. And by all means, let me get this straight. I should have done this from the get-go. This is not to say you shouldn't be grieving, or why are you still grieving? There is no time frame for grieving. There is no map, no roadmap, no GPS. There's no specific how-to. If you read some of those books, everybody tells you something different. You have to know yourself. What I'm talking about is when you are ready to move forward. For me, it took me 342 days. And if you're doing the math, that's almost a whole year. For others, it's taken longer. And being fully transparent, it probably would have taken me longer if I didn't know my dad and what his expectations were of his girls and of his son. And that gentleman that you see behind me, I could hear him saying, "Sonia, what are you doing? You did not go to be with the Lord. I did. You are purposeful." And in that, there was a time when my dad came to me and asked me, did I get the gift that he left me? And I didn't understand what that gift was then. I know what it is now. And that is the reason why I am here on episode number 242. It's not to pat myself on the back because I don't need that. It's because I know that there are women out there, and men too, that need to hear this message just as I needed to hear it back then. I didn't know go find an episode on social media. I wasn't thinking along those lines. I was trying to keep it in, pretend like everything was okay, and know that one day I'd be okay. So I have this question for you. What part of your life have you placed on hold because grief convinced you moving forward meant leaving your parents behind? It's time to reintroduce yourself to yourself. I'm going to say that again. It's time to reintroduce yourself to yourself. You see, parental loss can disconnect women from themselves completely. You forget what you enjoyed. You forget what peace brings. You forget who you were outside of pain. And suddenly, life becomes responsibility instead of living. Step number 4. Reconnect with the woman underneath survival mode. Ask yourself, what used to make me feel alive? What have I abandoned emotionally? See, healing is not only emotional recovery, it is identity recovery. If grief was not controlling your life right now, what version of yourself would you finally allow yourself to become? You see, moving forward after parental loss is not about getting over it, because you never get over losing someone you deeply loved. But you do learn how to carry the love differently. Step 5, last but surely not least. Stop waiting to feel fully healed before you start living again. Take that trip. Start that business. Invest in yourself. Hire yourself a parental grief life coach such as myself. Join a community of like-minded, uplifted, supportive people that are traveling in the same direction that you are or steps above you. Apply for the opportunity. Life is still calling your name, even through grief. So what if the next chapter of your life is not the end of your story, but the beginning of the woman you were always becoming? So if tonight's episode touched your heart, I need you to remember this. You're not weak because grief changed you. You are human. Losing a parent can shake your identity to the core, but it does not mean your life is over. There is still purpose in you. There is still healing in front of you. There is still life waiting for you. And maybe, just maybe, moving forward does not mean becoming who you were before the loss. Maybe it means becoming even stronger, wiser, and more intentional because of what you survived. And so with that being said, before we depart, jump over and thank everyone for attending, whether you're here live or you watch the replay later. And in that, I want to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart. The next Boss Warrior Queen Masterclass. And I titled it, After the Final Goodbye, Becoming Her Again. And that is scheduled for Wednesday, June 3rd at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is for the woman who has experienced parental loss, who smiles in public but cries in private, who feels emotionally exhausted from pretending to be strong. The woman who has isolated herself because nobody understands her pain. The woman who feels guilty for trying to move forward. The woman who secretly wonders if she will ever feel like herself again. So if this sounds like you or somebody that you know, please DM me with your email and the person that you believe who can benefit from that. And I will make sure that you are part of the email list so that you can receive the registration link, which will be dropping, I would say Monday. I'm going to let it drop earlier. So before midnight on Monday, the registration link will be live. And you will have that opportunity to register. And it is based on first come, first serve. Seats are limited. I can't be saving seats. I'm sorry. My goal is to fill that masterclass so that we can begin to move forward while we're still nixing and fixing and mixing in 2026. So with that being said, I want to thank you for joining. I will, again, like I said, go back and read the comments and respond. Be safe. Stay well. God bless you all. Bye for now.